call the finance and personnel committee workshop together, door to door. Purpose of it is, with Brandon and Caleb being new to the finance committee, um, I wanted to have a chance to bring Sean and Josh in to spend a little more in-depth time going through our financials so that we have a better understanding going into the budget process. Because we need, all three of us need to be, on the same page and understanding, of our, where we're at, so that, that's the goal and objective. So, and I really appreciate helping us do that tonight. So.
Sure. Great. Well, thanks for having us. It's always good to be able to present just to, really ground some of these principles that, Sean and I talk about every day, but you guys, a couple times a year tops, maybe to focus on the debt.
Yeah, how many communities do you do this on a daily basis with?
Right.
Right. We talk about this stuff all the time.
Right. So some of this might be familiar to you, some of it new. So obviously there aren't a ton of people here, so ask whatever questions you want. It's pretty low-key environment, so we can keep it as conversational as you like. So the first one is general obligation borrowing capacity. The state allows you to have 5% of your total equalized value in debt outstanding at any one time. So the chart here just shows how much principal you have in any given year. And really the main piece here is that you've got a lot of additional space to take on projects, like typical capital planning projects and things you issue debt for. Year in, year out. So about 16.5 billion in capacity since Somerset has grown so much over the last few years, since I've been here, at least. So I think that would get you a pretty long way if you guys just did, kind of keep on your similar schedule of some utility improvements or, paying for streets, vehicle purchases, that kind of stuff. But if you're really looking at big facilities kind of needs.
Like the second example, on New Village Hall at the two average prices, I'll put them at 11 million.
Right.
So
those are the kind of pieces that would meaningfully eat into this. Your debt, as you can see on the chart, is being paid off, and so you got that nice kind of downward slope that we like to see. So that allows you to add some more capacity or to take on some more debt, but without very meaningful growth, it's going to be hard to absorb potentially all the projects that you want to do, like those big legacy kinds of projects.
and sure as we go. So let's take that scenario, and combining the high end and the low end and coming up with that 11 million number. So you add that to, that would be essentially a New Village Hall would be pretty much all on the general tax levy, unlike the sewer utility or TIF districts. So it's going to have a significant impact on taxes.
That's right.
And also even possibility even doing it because of the levy limits, correct?
Well, general obligation debt would be outside of it.
That's right.
You can always add debt back on. So that's one benefit of doing it that way.
I confuse it with school finance.
Right. Yeah.
Andrea, where do you want this blue bar to be in relation to this red line?
I think it's great how it is.
You like to keep it about at that ratio? That's really like this thing?
Yeah, because then if, you do have some kind of emergency or say something
Well,
major
take this-
happens to the treatment plant,
Mhm.
you have that ability to,
Or, something
No,
did,
the
a
bridge
tornado
goes
did
out.
hit this,
you know,
tornado did hit the Village Hall, or, the bridge.
Insurance.
Well, but we'd have to finance it up front, and.
Because you probably worked pretty hard to get. Were we always in this position, or before we took over? Okay, so we worked pretty. I'm assuming we worked pretty hard to get
yeah.
where
Well,
we're
and
at.
our overall equalized value wasn't what
Yeah.
it is now.
That's the big, that's the
The
big,
growth has changed that,
Okay.
that gap quite a bit. So,
yeah, and, wouldn't,
Our standing has always been, be able to pay for some things in cash versus, that's why we have that capital improvements fund.
So how come this red line stays flat? What does this get? What does
So,
that
we
do?
don't, we don't know what the predicted valuation is going to be going forward.
So your prediction is flat?
We're not
No.
predicting anything.
No.
And
Okay.
so that's really the
It's
point.
super conservative.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay,
we're being
alright.
extremely conservative this.
Got it.
Yeah.
Like if we were to look over the last 10 years, so going to the left rather than projecting out to the right, it would be sloped up for sure.
Okay, so it's kind of something like, I'm trying to understand what you guys are baking in for risk or what your
So
projections
you're not
are.
showing any development trends or anything like that?
In
No.
this chart.
We certainly could. So we'll get to that in a few minutes to just see kind of how the history was. But if you look, to Sean's point, if you look back, you can see like there's like a slight kink to the line right here. That actually shows pretty small growth between last year and this year.
Yep.
So as you'll see in previous years, it won't be graphic, but I'll show you in a table like how much you've grown over like the last 5 years.
Okay,
At this
perfect.
point.
One other question for you too, relating to this chart. Of your total client base that you guys deal with, your worst being a 1, your best being a 10, how do we rate?
I'd say maybe like 7.
Yeah.
7 is the best, or 10 is the best. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd say, so I was just thinking that.
And we are definitely in much better position than I remember when I started,
Yeah, like
And-
Andrew was talking about, yeah.
because we had a lot of projects in the 2000s that were on the general tax levy, and we didn't have the valuation. You know, we had Sunrise Drive, that was the first major road project. Main Street.
Yep.
You know, all those
Lots
Those
of
were
projects.
major, multi-million-dollar projects that, you know, and lots of other ones too that I'm not mentioning, but.
Yeah, maybe one last thought on this from our experience. So if you think about, you guys were just talking about the red line on here, the growth of the village. And unfortunately, expenses and growth don't go like this. What happens is the growth is like this, you get to a critical point with your expenses, and then you have to make a major investment and it steps up. So as an example, is the perfect one that you were talking about, Ryan, is a village hall. At some point, you guys are at what, 450 million in value now. You get to 700, 800 million in value, and you have population significantly larger. You're gonna need more employees, you're gonna need more police space, all these things are gonna
And
happen.
we're maxed now. I mean, all of this, but I feel we're maxed.
You're
out.
already maxed, yeah.
We've already got
So
space.
when you make the investment, your investment isn't gonna be an investment just to the point you're at now. Your investment's gonna be 15 years, 20 years into the future. So it's gonna cost more. It's gonna be, you won't have all the growth yet that building will support. So investments are more like a step.
Well, like, just for example, I was talking with Dave Wollner, I was on the planning commission, and he's does in construction trade. When I look at the school, built the elementary school is roughly about $110 per square foot.
Yeah.
Now it's about $500 per square foot in construction costs.
Yep.
And that's from 2001 to 2025.
So where I think we wanted to get the point across on this is because you've done a nice job, and as Andrew's talking about, you weren't in this position, you are now. You know you're gonna have to make some big investments probably on the horizon here at some point. You do have the capacity to be able to do it. Now, when you do it, for a while, you're gonna be really tight. And at that point, you won't be an 8, you'll probably be a 3 for a little while.
Yep.
But it's inevitable. It happens to so many communities, especially in St. Clair County over the years. Hudson, Richmond, River Falls, Somerset, all have gone through growth spurts. And it's a very similar situation. You guys are thankfully prepared for it. But when it happens and you decide you have to make that investment, all these numbers get tight for a few years and then come back after that. But there is a period where you'll go through where it's tighter.
I mean, I think that these are totally cyclical things, just like, your sewer or water rates might be fine for any given community. That might be fine for 20 years of doing incremental 3% raises. But then eventually you have a major refurbishment to your wastewater treatment plant that costs $8 million. And so in that year, it's gonna be really unfortunate to have to bear a 30% increase or whatever it might be, like, who knows?
That's kind of what happens.
That's just the way it is. you know?
Inside of
Just like
that
all of our houses,
particular
right?
business, is all of that expense, Andrea, isolated to Water World, for lack of a better term?
For that scenario,
Yes.
so
We-
you
we
have to
got a slide
increase your
coming up on it.
rates,
Okay,
you know, to help cover those costs.
sure.
So the next slide is our annual debt service. Okay, so this is really when you take your principal and interest for all the debt you have outstanding. We've got about 6 issues that we're attributing to this, going back several years. But being under 1 here, in Somerset does not have a lot of debt compared to a lot of other places that we mentioned. So those are, some places that are in your 3 category earlier. And usually like that happens for much smaller communities. The places that are really pinched on capacity is because they've had, if you have to do a mile-long street, whether, you've got population of, $500,000 houses that line it, or, if you're in far rural western Wisconsin, the street costs the same to do it. So I frequently have that question when clients will come to us and say like, well, how's our debt compared to everyone else? And it's like, if you've got 2 places that are right next to each other almost, like Baldwin and Woodville, Baldwin just has a bigger tax base to absorb different things. So it's not always easy to compare like our situation to someone else's situation in a different place, because a lot of times the needs wind up being the same. But anyway, so the lines that you see
We
here,
can build some $2 million homes, and
there you go.
You'd be all set.
There you go. Boost your value.
actually, supposedly we did up in Pineville, it's the rumor.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Humberto, buddy built the first $2 million home up there.
So your total debt service for 2025 for all the debt you have outstanding right now is $660,275, right? So the way that this chart really works is the blue is the portion that is attributed to all of your non-levy sources. So that's portions that can be attributed to the TID or utilities of general obligation debt, because a lot of times we'll issue debt, one geo
So
issue for multiple streets, there's a water component.
the green part is what is on our Christmas card.
Right.
The tax.
Right, yeah. So for this year, the way that we were calculating it is the amount that's available to be paid by the TIDs and utilities was 469, with the green bars representing the levy at 190. But in any given year, that might shift based on how well the TIDs are performing. So if the TIDs can cover all their costs, great, that blue bar stays the way it is. If it is lower, then the blue bar shrinks and the green bar can expand a little bit to make
Also
sure.
depends on how we have loan structures as well.
Yeah, sort of, but that should be fixed based on the way the loans are structured, because once you issue them, that is set in stone.
Yeah.
But so it's the revenue source that's available to pay for that, that's going to be the composition of the change. So as long as your TIDs and your utilities are doing fine, you can levy as little as you need to pay for the street portion or equipment or all those things that you're supposed to offer tax dollars for. Because utilities are supposed to pay their own way, TIDs are supposed to pay their own way.
Andrew, how are we with utility collections? Past
Find
year.
out in this little slide.
You got a slide for that?
Yep, we have a slide for that too.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so the next one, we just want to talk about levy limits quickly, and I thought it'd be good to just go back in time a little bit to show kind of where we were a few years ago, when I started here, to where we are now. So for levy limits is the state of Wisconsin scheme to keep municipal spending in check, right? So rather than allowing municipalities to go out and raise taxes for whatever they wanted, the legislature felt it was appropriate to limit their base levy for operations to basically net new construction growth every year.
Schools have been under the same concept, but a different formula for a couple more decades.
Sure. Sean can probably speak more to the school side. I know almost nothing about
Yeah.
school financing.
I
Sorry.
worked in academics, so I knew that side, so.
Okay. So the only real way to get out of the levy limits is through issuing general obligation debt. So geo debt, what you're really pledging is the full faith and credit of the village to back the debt, right? So if you weren't able to issue debt and raise your levy limit accordingly, technically you would not have the full faith and credit, you would be limited. So therefore it would be a worse pledge, right? So that's the whole point a general obligation debt. So you going out, when people buy and invest in the Village of Somerset, what you're telling them is, we will pay you back by any means necessary, and we will levy a tax to do that. So if you're unable to put that on the levy limit and raise your levy, it's in violation of that pledge. So that's why they give you that exception to put all of your general obligation debt on your levy limit worksheet and raise your debt accordingly. Okay. So what we're showing here, I wanted to show your base levy. We can see how it grows very incrementally over time, but the change in the actual debt levy, that's the piece that we can, Sean and I think about the most. That can go up or down, again, based on the needs. Thinking about the last slide, like how big that blue bar might wind up being. So for this last year, think about the last slide, we calculated your needs for this year being like 199, but it wound up being this year 268. And that's what I pulled off the levy limit worksheet to get to this. So the other takeaway from this slide is looking over all the way on the right as the total levy, 1483, and how that kind of creeps up over time too. And then on the next slide, I'll show you how that works into your actual tax rates, being again about how growth in the community has allowed that to go up, but actually keep your tax rate going
So-
down.
The 2.1 was the current budget year max levy.
That's right.
Okay.
That's right.
Yeah, and just a couple things on this. If you look for the committee, or if you look at the total levy column, you'll see it grew from 1,000,007 to 1,000,009. That was one big year from 22 to 23. That's when the big TID closed. That's the other way you can raise your levy, is when your tax increment districts pay all their costs back and can close, the state will allow you to do an increase at that point. So the village did that in that year. And then just one other question, make sure everybody understands. Where you see the debt levy, and when you look at 24, 25, you see where it says $268,350 there? From the previous slide, your total general obligation debt payments this year in 25 are well over 600,000. You could put 600,000 on this line. So you could raise your levy to that level.
But that'd be, the Christmas card would be that much higher.
The impact on your taxpayers would be, significant and painful. But I just want to kind of clarify for you guys, you could do that under the levy limit rules. You're allowed to put whatever your geo debt payment is, you put it on this. But what you guys do is you're much more, you're just putting basically what you need on there,
Well,
not what you could put on there.
It's you guys are helping us do that, so.
Oh, she's fully
But-
trained on
and-
it. Yes,
yeah,
yes,
yeah.
she's got this nailed down now, but yes.
The three of you absolutely are how we are achieving this.
We work on it collectively every year.
I want to circle back to this, the tax rate, the lower tax rate. So
Yeah.
we're not
Also, next
actually,
slide.
yeah, so we're not actually charging lower taxes. It's just that because we're adding all that value, the percentage of the tax rate is more or less, the dollar amount has stayed the same, but the
That's
percentage
totally right.
went down.
So jumping over to the next slide, you can see the total levy column, that's brought directly from the previous slide, right? So you can see how it goes up. But since your equalized value is going up so much, I mean, the way you do the math is your tax base is expanding. So the same amount of debt spread over a larger tax base means that the tax rate for any individual payer goes down.
I'll just make a segue here and remember, we had just go to the board of review where we had to sit here for 3 hours.
Mhm.
And the assessor, basically told us that we are out of the compliance, and we got the proposals to do a reevaluation, not next year, but the following year. Correct? Is that-
To assess values or to assess values so we can raise the taxes.
Well, it would be a rebalance. It should be a rebalancing of everything. It should come out the same if everything's done correctly.
So you guys, this is probably a good point to talk about for a minute, just so everybody understands. I know these guys get it. We work with it all the time.
Just a very sensitive subject.
It is.
Yeah.
So you-
I want to be educated.
This is the part, well, because this is
Speak to it
what
well.
people get upset about, and we have to try to explain municipal finance to them, and they don't get it.
Yep.
They're mad in the first place.
Well, it affects us too, we don't get
Oh, yeah.
pay taxes. Well, I'm trying to keep our taxes low too, everyone's.
Our taxes are low.
Keep them.
So you guys have two values. You have equalized value and assessed value. Equalized value is market value. So that should be, if you're trying to sell your house, your equalized value should be relatively close to what you can sell you. That's the market value. Assessed value is what's on your tax bill. And assessed value really doesn't change until you do a reassessment. So if I had a house.
Or you build a deck and.
Or you do something like that, yeah,
Improvement.
improvements. So if I had a house in Somerset and let's say I bought it 10 years ago, it was a new house at that point, so it goes on the tax roll, but I don't see Mr. and Mrs. Assessor for 10 years, they don't come out to reassess. Well, chances are my assessed value is far below my equalized value. And that's what your assessor was saying to you guys is I look, he or she is, they're looking across all of your property in the village, they're saying, your equalized value is here, your assessed value is here.
Yeah.
And the state is saying, you're out of whack, you gotta change that. So you have to do a reassessment, and like Brian's saying, when you do a reassessment, then the values are up, they're at the same.
Oh, yeah, I mean, some houses that were
When
built,
the assessment happens, the market and the assessment value go to the same.
Yes, it's supposed to be a really darn close, yeah,
Yes.
right.
Yeah, so I mean, if it's
So
done,
what
correctly,
agency-
people shouldn't see a change in the taxes. Some people will.
When it happens, it's always a little bit lumpy. So
There's
like,
there's
to show
always some
some
winners and
like,
some losers.
if I bought my house this year for 400,000 and then someone bought their house 10 years ago for 200,000 or 250, whatever it was,
Yeah.
there's a chance my assessment probably doesn't go up at all because it's so recent, and theirs will go up to whatever it is now. And so when you think about how equalized values change over year, my taxes probably won't change very much at all. Theirs is going to go up.
well, my houses went up
How often does the state require
70,000
the
because I built
assessment?
it.
I think it's when the equalization ratio is that number, like the assessed value divided by the equalized value. I think when it dips below 70%, that's when they
And
force
then
it.
we
And
are.
we're at 60, 63 or something like that.
So that triggers the
That
state
triggers
to
it.
go, hey, get your poop in a group over here,
Right.
Somerset.
And being that we have a plan to do it, I'm assuming the state's not gonna crack down on us, being that
As long as
we're.
you're showing some effort.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And you guys may say, well, why even have two values? Well, the reason is, you know how the county levies taxes, right? And then they spread it over all of the taxing jurisdictions that are in the county. Okay, so the St. Croix County, they come up with what their levy is gonna be. Now they have to collect it. How do they disperse what their levy is gonna be to communities all throughout St. Croix County? The way they do it is based on equalized value, which is market value, instead of assessed value. Because if they did it on assessed value, you guys would all say, I'm never gonna do a reassessment. Why would I do it? It's just gonna cause me to have to pick up more of the county's share of taxes. And it's the same thing with school districts too. It's the same.
Yeah, but the county redistributes funds to the municipalities, right?
Mm,
Well, that's when they collect the taxes and actually pay them to you guys. But
They have their portion of property taxes that fund their budget.
I get that.
But they also, the county treasurer does the collections of taxes. for
when you
everyone.
pay your tax, you're not just writing the village share as a separate check. You pay it all.
Yep.
The county collects it all.
So does the county give us any money back as a municipality?
They give you the money that you levied. The county doesn't levy money for the purposes of giving it to communities. They don't do that.
So
At
they,
least I don't think so.
they take their share and they,
Provide us zero services.
no, they maintain the county roads and the
Okay.
county parks
Right.
and whatever.
Sheriff's Department.
Yeah.
Sheriff's Department, court
Justice
system,
Center.
yeah, all that stuff.
Yeah, those are the parts of the,
The county costs.
Right, but it's not like the counties don't do what the state does, which is they collect tax revenue and then redistribute it out to communities. So they actually are,
the only thing that they do is the library tax, but
yeah, but it's a
that's
small,
a small thing.
that's right, that is true. The library does get into that redistribution. But, yeah. So
And
anyway.
the other advantage the county has is they're able to levy sales tax. You know, St. Croix County has a 0.5% sales tax, and they generate several millions of dollars.
Millions of dollars.
Millions of dollars in from that.
Yep.
I served on the county board, so I mean, it is shocking the amount of money that,
It's a big part of
Yeah.
their revenue to pay for the county expenses, no doubt.
Revenue, I love that term.
They got a nice new building over there they gotta pay for. Upgrade.
it's a hell of a building.
Okay, so the next one is bond rating. So I touched on this a couple of months ago when we issued the debt that paid for the capstone incentive, their reimbursement for the infrastructure that they did in TID 6. So your general obligation debt is rated A1 by Moody's Investment Services, and that's a solid rating. There's nothing wrong with that. What they reported when they did their report, so this is a call that we have every time we issue debt. We get Andrew on there to really describe the finances. Bob's on there to describe economic development. So, they'll ask questions about your budget, your cash on hand, how well your TID's doing, all that kind of thing. And we help, kind of guide and coach that process. And so they give you kind of their, 10,000 foot, third party assessment of the Village of Somerset's debt and governance, right? So what they reported is strengths working in your favor are that you have favorable location next to the Twin Cities. Certainly the bridge is helpful in telling that story, right? So that's why you guys are able to grow so much. There's population moving out here. That's a great thing to do. Strong value per capita. So going from the previous slide, you can see your equalized value shooting up a lot faster than your population. So that looks great to them. The weaknesses are lower reserves, like this is your fund balance compared to other similarly rated peers, right? And the next one, is
So
not
that, hold on, that means we don't tax enough, right?
that's one way to look at it. You're spending more cash and then putting maybe less on the levy limit than you maybe could. That's one way to look at it.
With their, at the end of the day, what are they really coming to a conclusion about when they give you a rating? The conclusion is, how risky is it that you may not make your debt payment? So if you think about,
It's just our credit rating.
yeah, exactly, that's what it is. So think about it, in your case, if you're gonna get a loan as an individual for your house, and the bank is looking at you, and you've got $1 million in the bank, and you're buying a $500,000 house, well, you're not much of a credit risk, because you got a ton of money that's liquid. The reserve is the same way, that's how they look at it. If a village or city has a bunch of money in the bank, and they're borrowing money, the chances they don't pay it is less because they got a bunch of money in the bank. That's really what they're after.
They also look at things and say, like, what would you need to get an upgrade or a downgrade? And certainly, like,
We talked about this, what I meant with you guys a while back. What could we do to improve our rating?
Yep.
If it's even possible.
The main one that they would want you to focus on is your savings and keeping your fund balance as high as you can, right? So there's always an interplay there between how much debt you have on, how much you're willing to go out for taxes for, and how much you keep in your savings. So when you've got a large fund balance and they see it going down over time, they note that, but then they also weigh against that, like how much debt have they really taken on? So if you take on too much debt, then they don't like that either. So it is really about like finding a sweet spot in your fund balance. And that's usually around 25 to 30% of your fund balance, of your revenues, general fund revenues.
How are the bond markets just in general? Obviously, I'm not really big into finance, but I hear they're more volatile or not as stable as they used to be. Is there any, does that affect us at all? Or?
I mean, there's always like a little bit of like macroeconomic uncertainty that weighs into how much interest rates are going for at any given time. I think rates are now maybe like marginally better than they were 6 months ago or something like that. But I don't think there's any reasonable chance that people are going to stop investing in municipal securities or anything like that. I think it's mostly around, on the margins. When you look at it from like a 30-year perspective, that would have been a good slide to bring. You can kind of see that rates were much higher than they were now, like 30 years ago. And they kind of trend down, and then kind of pick up for the last 3 years or so. And so what that really means is the cost of borrowing now is basically where it was about 5 to 10 years ago. Not too much different.
When inflation went up a couple of years ago, rates went up. We were early 2000s, we were 1-2% or late 2018, 19. But now, as an example, Josh and I worked on a sale for Marathon City, if you guys know where that is, out to the east a little bit, Marathon County.
Yep.
Close to Wausau.
Hmm.
They're similar to Somerset in a lot of ways. They sold a debt issue today, paid back over 20 years. It was under 4% was the blended interest rate. So it's still a good market, competitive sale, yeah.
So another noteworthy thing to pull out of the rating report, and I think this is something I circulated to the board when I was here, and I can certainly send it to you guys again. It's a good thing to just read through. It's a couple pages long, and it's kind of nice to see what other people have to say about your community. But they gave you an A1 rating, but their objective scorecard could have been one notch lower. And it's mostly because your fund balance has decreased in the last several years. So that was the thing that they were really hitting on. They're basically saying, like, you're
That
growing
was really
community.
because we did repairs to the bridge.
Yep.
And we used the bridge fund,
Exactly. So
because we always had that huge cash reserve.
Actually, it's because the general fund is giving advances to the TIDs and the
Oh.
sewer utility because they're not able to cover all of their stuff. So,
But when we get that back, that'll go into
We
the,
should.
go right back into those reserves.
that's,
I didn't know that. Thank
these
you.
are all like multi-year problems and solutions, right? It's always just a problem. It's usually not just 1 year that it's like, oh, we spent $500,000, goes down. It's usually a trickle, and then it takes also multiple years to get you back into the place where you can replenish those things.
So you're saying, 30 years ago, grass was here, came down to here. We're on an upswing right now. What are the risks of us, say, like, not moving on projects? So,
Increased cost.
right. So, I mean, that's something that I've really been weighing lately is like, all right, it cost them went up this much over the last couple of years. So, if we have big projects, should we consider moving on them sooner or later, or what's the risk of not acting, I guess, and up to the bottom line, the percentages?
I have a comment, but go ahead.
Yeah, so what you just talked about is what all, especially growing communities, struggle with. If there are projects that you're gonna have to do at some point, just not doing them is really gonna just cause more problems in the future. But what you can do, and this is what I think everybody struggles with it, people struggle with it at their household, is you can work on a plan to prioritize what you guys think is most important. Understand what the impact of that is gonna be moving forward, and then act on that plan. So,
Which is the financial management plan,
yeah, so
enhanced financial management plan that we've talked about redoing.
right, because where you guys are right now is you've got a nice trend growing. There's no doubt about it. Somerset's obviously an attractive place to be, and people are moving in here in large quantities right now. That's going to lead to more stress on your facilities and more stress on the assets of the village. You guys, as the elected officials, are going to continually be asked, here's where the assets are weakening and we need to make investments. You got to come up with a decision on which ones are most important. And then you need to understand before you finally make decisions on how much is it going to cost you to make those decisions and proceed. And so what an idea like a financial,
Ever understanding what it's going to affect the taxpayer.
and the tax rate, utility rates. Yep, absolutely. So a way you can do that is by modeling the impact of the different decisions that you're going to weigh. You can understand and prioritize which ones are most important to you guys. And is there a stress point that you as the elected officials feel like that's too high? We can't go to that tax level because I don't feel comfortable about it, and the public won't accept it. So by modeling things out, kind of seeing the impact in a longer term view, it helps, instead of making your decisions on a case by case basis and looking at everything individually, you're looking at it all together and prioritizing to try to keep control of your taxes.
When I got that forward last year about the redoing the financial management plan and looking at these scenarios, that was a discussion that we got stuck on. Well, we look at that every time we do a bond rating. Well, what do you just point out is the difference that we look at it holistically, from all different, areas. years.
And that's why Bob does his 5-year project
Yeah.
plan. They have a long-term equipment replacement plan. The fire department has their short-term, what we need in the next couple of years, and then, oh, we're gonna need this $1 billion truck in 5 years, 6 years, whatever, to help balance all of that out.
Yeah, the ones on mine, I guess the things we needed to buy aren't quite on there yet then.
Mhm.
Things that I'm thinking that we need, the things we're talking about now, as far as a new building for here, police, and for the shop.
The Public Works building.
And that's gonna push us right, pretty much to the max. I mean, depending on what we build.
Yeah, and I don't think we're gonna get all three at once, but that's,
No.
I would like to get,
You
that's,
could phase it though.
yeah. I'd like to set up future boards for success.
Yeah, and that's the concept, is given, take
That's why
all
we
the
need to-
projects together.
That's
lay
why
it
we need
out.
to start strategizing for
Yeah.
when we think it's gonna be the right time to do it.
Because to me, it would be impossible to make a decision if all I knew is I have this project, it costs this much. I gotta make a decision on it, but I have no idea how it fits into a broader plan overall.
Yeah.
You know, and what might come 6 months later, another 6 months after that. The more you can lay that out, I think it helps and feel comfortable that we're not burying ourselves from one decision to the next.
Yeah, and I'm kind of a practical guy where it's like, well, if we need it, we're just gonna have to, if we need it, we're gonna have to buy it, we'll have to figure out how to pay for it. But, I don't like to go about things that way.
Yeah. Not for everything.
Yeah.
I mean, there's some things that you just have to do that, but not for major
Right.
improvements.
You know, sometimes you just have to put it on a priority list, and when you can afford it, but a lot of times you gotta buy it.
Yeah, like I'm gonna go probably buy another generator and have one for my house, just to be ready in case I don't have power for a few days.
Yeah, not to segue too far, but you and the Public Works with this outage last week highlighted some lift station issues that,
We're pushing it.
Yeah.
We don't have enough power.
so we'll talk about that on another agenda, so.
So the next slide is on fund balance. You can see how it's really kind of changed over time. Your expenses or your revenues that we're showing is usually kind of where we peg that. You know, unassigned fund balance, basically your savings account compared to your income, right? It's fluctuated quite a bit over the last few years, dipping down pretty substantially in 2023, but then coming back in 2024. So I think that we need to pin down and just get more intel on that, like where that came from. Because I knew that at one point that was supposed to be an influx of cash because Pinevale, they sold them the land, right? That was supposed to be $750,000 approximately to go to that fund, but it also showed up in the TID 6 account, or at least there's some extra cash there. So we just need to make sure that we're on the same page and tracking that accordingly.
Do we still have a policy or in the financial management plan that it's a minimum, we try to maintain a minimum of 25%
I think it
or
was
30%?
25%, wasn't it?
Yeah, it is still.
Yeah. So the idea there for the group is the 25% as a minimum. If you think about how the village collects its revenues, you get a lot of tax revenue early in the year. And then from probably March until the end of August, you don't get much at all.
Right.
And then in August, you get your second half tax collections. And then in November, you get the money from the state.
Yeah.
So there's a big chunk of time where Andrea's still getting, monthly, you're getting bills, you're getting salaries and wages for
Debt
people,
payments.
debt payments.
We need to, we're borrowing from ourselves again.
You gotta have cash
Yeah.
to get you through. So that 25% is, 25% of your budgeted revenues or budgeted expenses. It's about 3 months, so you got about 3 months. If you can have it higher, that's even better, but that's kind of the minimum target we like to have.
Yeah, but we just went through this at the West Central Region Planning Commission because they operate a little bit differently. We set it at a 6 month because as things would wind down, it would mean laying off people to keep the budget balance, so.
Yeah. Because of the cash flow
Yeah.
from month to month.
So do you recommend that we are hired?
Well, what I agree with Josh, we want to understand this new
Yeah.
number, that 36%, and try to really nail down if that's a sustainable or as
Was
you
it
look
a-
at the last couple of years, it's kind of
It's a
toggled.
blip.
Yeah, so once we have that, yes, I think at the end of the day, you guys are going through a rapid growth phase right now. With levy limits, it is very difficult to build your fund balance, but one way you can do it is if you're getting a lot of building permit revenues and other things come in which are extraordinary. Typically, communities, and I think Somerset does this too, you budget pretty conservatively on those. And then when you get more of them, you can kind of take that extra to build your fund balance up. I think a growing community like you guys, if you could be in that 30 to 40% range, not forever, but through the period of growth would be good. And then in the long run, maybe that comes down again. Down the road.
So this is a really meaningful thing to keep your eye on because Aaron was mentioning, when that goes down, some of that is being used to fill gaps for, the various TIDs and the sewer utilities that can't pay their own share. So going back to that slide, wherever it was with the blue and green bars, that's how you kind of fill some of those to keep it off of the levy. But when you keep a habit of doing that, then your fund balance goes down, which of course the rating agency doesn't like. So there's a couple things, sometimes it's nice to use cash to not borrow, but if you do that too many times, then you deplete it for those other uses that are also important. So
Which
finding
then
that.
can affect your credit, your bond rating.
Yeah.
It gets complex quick.
Moody's gets real moody.
Yeah.
Oh,
Well, there's
I
other
was waiting for a
ratings.
dad joke. I knew there was one in there.
You may say, well, what do we even get this rating for? The better the rating, when you do borrow, the lower the interest rates. That's really why you do
Who typically buys our debt, our bond, our
Uh,
municipal bonds?
it. So big buyers are banks, rich individuals, insurance companies. Those are,
Just so they can have
More of a-
something on their books that's like a safe investment,
Exactly.
doesn't pay a
yep,
high percentage.
Mutual funds.
mutual funds.
Bonds.
Yep. They love tax
And
exempt bonds.
even we had a lot, when we did some of the bonds, even some of the local banks were
Oh, yeah.
the issuers.
Some of them bought some of our smaller whole issues, but otherwise, when an underwriting firm, so somebody like Northland Securities, Baird, BOK Securities, Piper Jaffray, when they buy a bond issue from a community, they're calling banks in the area to say, hey, the Village of Somerset just sold some debt. We don't expect you guys to buy all 3 million of it, but would you like a couple 100,000? And then they'll sell some of it to them. So those are the kind of people. And they typically have a list of people in the area who have wealth. And they'll also reach out and call those folks and say, hey, we got some bonds. You guys know Somerset, would you be interested in buying some of their bonds? Because if a rich individual or wealthy individual purchases a municipal bond and the village makes an interest payment to them, they don't have to pay taxes on that interest. That's why it's attractive to them to buy the village's
Yeah,
bonds.
they would screw up on my investments all over the
Yeah.
years.
I know, I'm like,
There's also lower interest rates than
Yeah.
corporate bonds.
Yeah,
But actually, I didn't know that. But
Super
I
safe.
don't have enough money to invest in it, so.
That's the problem.
All these strategies that I have no ability to implement at all.
Yeah.
what's the minimum buy-in on something like that?
$1 million.
Actually, it's the bonds are sold in blocks of 5,000. So if you
Really?
have a bond,
Oh, well, I could be dead.
Yeah.
Screw up the last 25 years with
Yeah.
investments.
You can buy.
So every time we bond out, we could get, potentially someone could buy $5,000
Oh, it'd be
share.
a
Yeah,
Right.
buy
Oh,
it
like
from,
that.
not from us.
Yeah.
It'd be a
Just the
conflict.
exchange.
We'd have to buy out some other communities, it'd be a conflict of interest to buy our own.
This is just like the state senate, the Senate. We can do whatever we want.
Oh, yeah.
Just got to disclose it.
Okay, cool.
And we're moving on.
Yeah, we're gonna shift to utility rates and charges. So seeing the help there. So the first one we want to talk about is the water utility. Without going line by line here, this is just the calculation that we use to prove a couple of different things. One, your operating income is positive, so about 256,000 to the good. That's great. So basically making sure it's profitable and functioning well. You've got 396,000 available in cash, and you're generating additional cash each year. So as far as I can tell, your water utility is functioning totally appropriately.
The PSC controls the water utility rates.
That's right.
Or you can do the simplified rate
3%.
Yeah,
So
Cause
I-
we just okayed a rate hike, I think of like, what, 3%?
that's a simple rate.
It was
Yeah.
like 1.2% over each year for the next three, something stupid.
So that's
That
really-
was
that-
sewer.
That was
That's
sewer.
been water.
That was one, okay.
So
So the
PSC
goal on
allows
this
you-
one is just to keep it like, what is our, how much do we
Well-
wanna keep that value at? I know we wanna keep some money in the bank, but not too much because we don't wanna be
Yeah.
charging too much. What's a number that you like, Andrea?
I think we're good right now.
And then the next slide.
Yeah,
will
the
help
next
with
slide will
this.
show a little bit more detail like why this is important.
What number were you saying we're good at, Andrew?
Where we're at right now.
To have like at
Bond.
least 400,000
In the water, okay.
in the water.
So that
Thank you.
calculation for available net revenues at the bottom, I just wanted to show you a little bit of the math that goes into it. So the 44502 is a great number. That's what we're calculating is available to pay your debt. So the next page is a longer and harder to read table. So I'll just walk you through it a little bit. So you can see on the left-hand side that available net revenue is 44502. That's how we calculate it from the previous page. The first section that's important here is your revenue bond debt service, right? So Sean mentioned earlier, like the debt to income ratio for your house. When you issue revenue bonds, they see something similar and they want to see that your available net revenues is at least 1.1 times the actual debt service that you have at any given time. So for that safe drinking water loan that was from 2019 issued by the state of Wisconsin, your coverage for that, you have 445,000 net revenues compared to only 69,000 in debt. So for the revenue side, that's great. Moving over to the right,
Just like, does anyone recall what that safe drinking was
I
for?
was just trying to think of the same thing.
That was for well 5.
Yeah, the well.
Okay, thank you.
that's why Andrew's here. She has that encyclopedic knowledge of those things that happened 6 years ago. Thank you for that context. Perfect. So after we look at the revenue bonds, that's the most important thing because you're actually pledging in your resolution to keep the ratio above 1.1 times. So that's the first thing we look at. After that, moving to the right are the water portions that are attributed to all of those successive notes, right? So the last major one was in 2023. There was a lot of water attributed to that bond issuance. So when we add all that together,
Churchill,
I think, and there wasn't the stuff with the bridge?
and the bridge.
That was in there too, that was water improvements,
We refinanced.
and there was something.
The hangers, the damn hangers.
Took forever. Handmade.
so your total water utility debt is, for 2024 at least, and it's going to be around 260,000 again this year. 260,000 for debt, again, compared to 445,000 revenues. So you're vastly above one. So on the general obligation side, when we added all the debt, you just need to make sure you're above one. So you're able to pay all your bills. And that's really the main takeaway there. So to Andrew's point, your rates and charges right now are sufficient to pay all of your bills. So water's looking just fine.
And that's, you're basing it on the four, that we have 440,000 every year going forward in
Right.
available cash.
Not in cash. It's
That's
revenues to
for
come.
debt service.
Right, yeah, just to pay your debt service.
Okay,
So after you pay your debt, Ryan, on the
Yeah.
far right side where it
Yeah,
says
I-
remaining funds?
I was,
Yeah.
I misspoke, but
Got
thank you.
So utility is a bit of a different story, right? The most important thing that I want you to take away from this slide is the negative operating income. So when you subtract off your operating expenses from your revenues, that one's not doing so great. So the way that you're able to pay all of your debt service is by adding in depreciation, which is usually kind of like an accounting expense. You get to add that back in. You put in the interest revenues and the hookup fees. That gets you up to the 330, which you need to pay your bills. There is currently zero in cash in the sewer fund. So if there's zero in cash moving forward, you're probably going to lose out on the interest revenue. Where's you're generating interest from if there's no balance, right? So this is when I would say you should probably consider raising your rates and really think about that sometime soon.
Our sewer.
You can talk to the residents on that one.
I'm sure that will be popular. I'll be the most beloved person in Somerset.
Yeah.
Um,
So, yeah.
Elders told us we have to raise it.
Yeah, that's Eller's fault, yes.
You may contact them at.
Yeah.
Well, just one thing to mention on this, when you're using your depreciation to pay debt, that means you're not putting money away to pay for anything that
It's
comes
a
down.
horrible
the future.
business
It's a
decision.
bad business.
Oh, yeah,
decision.
yeah,
It's
that's a-
an accounting, my opinion, it's an accounting trick.
yeah, just to make sure the,
Sewer
Books
utility's
balance.
always been,
In Albatross.
a difficult one. Nobody wants to raise rates. And it costs a lot of money to operate the sewer utility.
I mean,
So, and that continues to go up even if you keep your rates flat.
so our costs though have been, as far as operating costs have been pretty consistent, but they've been consistently rising.
Well, the infrastructure's crumbling.
But now we just did a
You gotta-
major improvement to it.
Yeah, outside of the plant.
Um,
Everything else is-
Yeah, the
So
pipe
we
in the
should
ground.
start
yeah.
seeing less in that operating costs.
And the maintenance
Because
stuff.
of the maintenance.
Yep.
And there's been last year especially, there was a lot of overtime for the Public Works Department having to manually do things where our
Babysit.
system was not operating
Yep,
right.
yep, yeah, they had to like go and change.
So that was a lot of
it.
overtime because it was 24 hours a day. Somebody had to go and do whatever they had to do. to
Yeah,
make it
yeah, I
work.
remember that, yeah.
So,
So we'll see that pretty frequently, sometimes going back to that calculation. In any given year, we'll see
Yeah,
like
but
operating
operations,
incomes go way up. It's like, oh, what happened? Or for, we'll talk to people and I'll say, hey, these results don't look so good. What happened this year? And they're like, oh, well, we had to pay for the water tower to get painted. That was $500,000. Like those kinds of things. Yeah.
I don't,
So the-
just one thing, Caleb, I don't think our everything's crumbling. I think we're in a pretty good shape. I think as far as
Now.
the plant,
Well,
that's in.
I'm saying theoretical.
Oh, okay, all right.
Once you put it in the ground, it starts to
Yeah, yeah.
disintegrate.
I gotcha.
as soon as you bought it, it's going bad, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
but
And
a
all
lot
the
of it
pumps
has
and all the
been
other
the
stuff that's in
plant
there is-
itself.
Andrew, what, late nineties was when they did the first major remodel?
Early 2000s.
It was
Yeah.
2020 I'm sorry, 2000 or 2001.
Okay, yeah. So,
You
so
know how
and ever
old
since then, when we raised rates, it just was never actually, in my opinion, high enough to cover.
But costs.
No, but that would be.
But it was, we were too afraid.
200% increase.
We couldn't do it because residents would just,
It's
they
very
would
difficult.
lynch us.
Yeah. Yeah, and purely from a business standpoint, when any of these funds is not self-sufficient, water utility, sewer utility, or the TID districts, which Josh will go through in a second, the general fund has to pay. At the end of the line is the general fund.
We have to pay, we're not the federal government that just gets to extend the credit card.
Exactly.
Right.
Yep.
So that on those depreciating assets, what's the bulk of the depreciation? Is that the equipment that the new equipment that we have, that we've installed and we're on, like, most of that stuff's gonna be depreciated within 5 to 7 years?
Oh, I think it's longer.
Longer?
than that.
Like a meter depreciates, how
Yeah.
high, what fire hydrant depreciates,
I
the main.
I depreciate stuff.
And again, we're not going there.
Yeah.
Andrew, what's our current sewer rate?
It's,
It's over there on that sheet and
It's
on the
the one
back
thing
of
she
your
didn't have
bill.
off
I
the top of
think
her head.
it's like $11 and some cents per 1,000 gallons.
And we still get complaints. Sorry.
It's, what, like 3 times higher than the water rate.
Andrew,
Probably
Cedar
costs that much.
Corp used to do that survey of the overall, tax.
Yeah, a bunch of communities.
All their rates, we've always been in the high range.
Do they still do that, and do we still
I have
receive
no
that?
idea.
You
No,
haven't
we don't
received,
receive it.
okay.
On
I
the
was
silver
curious,
side,
I was just curious where we were at.
I don't know if we did that either. I don't know if they still do it.
I don't think
Maybe they stopped
PSC
doing
would
it
do
since
for
Charlie
water.
left,
Yeah.
But it seems like our operating costs should stay, I don't think we should see them increase at the rate we were. I think we should now with the new plant, how it's running more efficiently and some of the stuff they're trying to implement. I think it's gonna hopefully level off a little
As
bit.
in all that overtime that wasn't affected the operating.
we will-
costs
Do we need to
last
take a
year
year or
and
two?
maintenance.
Should we take a year or two to see what those operating costs are gonna be like before we consider a sewer rate
No.
review
I would,
raise?
I would do it incremental.
I would do, yeah,
Yes.
because you don't want to say, oh, well, now we have to raise it 7%
That,
2 years from now, when we could have done like of 1.5% this year, 1.5, and then,
It should be like 1.5 every year.
Just bake.
Basically, like a like Social Security.
Because what's
Gets a
gonna
COLA.
happen is, all of a sudden, the main's gonna break in the middle of Spring Street,
And
and
we're
that's
gonna
gonna
need that.
cost us $2.5 million to dig up the street, dig up the pipe.
And instead of having a bond out for it, we'll
On
have the cash on hand.
opposite of the,
It's
the
gonna
water,
happen.
with
It
the
will
water,
happen.
you know, we didn't have a full rate case done in many, many years.
Yeah.
It was like over 20 years. If I-
How old is our oldest pipe in the ground?
that's not a me question.
Oh,
That would be a bottom question.
Well,
None of it's
I
lead.
guarantee some of the pipes are
Zero
older
lead.
than any of us.
Oh, yeah.
Probably older than me for sure.
So pretty much the same conclusion on, the same way you read the sewer utility debt service coverage. Once you get to the far right, the total coverage is just over 1. So it's certainly not as healthy as the water.
But just making it.
Yes,
We're
just making
just
it,
skimping by.
just because you're using the depreciation and all those
But
other
we've
temporary
been-
funding sources.
Going around, we're hoping that the investments will show better operational costs.
You guys have a sense of what, like a 1.5% increase, how that moves the needle on the just over 1?
The coverage.
Yeah, we could do that math. I don't have it off the top of my head, but that's a.
The other thing I'm really interested in on both your utilities, with all your growth going on, is how much,
Capacity.
you got it. Yeah, in both your water utility and your sewer utility, how much unused capacity do you have that's now gonna start getting used? Theoretically, that should,
We're sitting pretty good at
Yeah.
capacity.
But and what-
We're about
What
60%.
what the DNR permit is permitting us to, we actually can process is also another factor.
absolutely, right? I mean, even if you have the capacity, but they won't let you, there's things to think about there.
Well, we definitely have the capacity for the kids in the buildings we're adding.
So theoretically, the operating expenses are already kind of there at the size of plant that you have. You have more users, your revenue should grow faster than your expenses.
Yeah.
If all things, until you start reaching capacity, then remember those steps
Have
I
to
was
make
talking
some kind
about?
of improvement to
Then you
the,
have to do the big improvements to expand your capacity.
So between the more efficient plant and the users we're adding, that isn't really adding additional costs. We should hopefully at least be able.
well, we were projected by now
I
to
don't think
build
they
a
should cover
second
us.
set of SBR tanks. And that has never occurred yet,
I think the next big project that we're looking at is we need to put a pressure outlet over on Depot, yeah, to get that stuff.
Pressure's low.
So it is helpful sometimes to tie rate increases with projects. So at least when people come and, they're banging on your door, you can say, well, we had to do it to pay for X, Y, and Z.
at least they
It's
see,
a little
see
easier.
something,
Yeah.
But you guys' thought about consistent small rather than,
I like it, can we
Large.
establish a policy, a resolution, so it's basically automatic, that
sewer, you guys can do almost anything you want.
Yeah.
Not regulated by PSC.
you can't, I suppose you can't do that automatically for the simplified rate cases, that would have to be applied for every year.
Right.
Yes.
I understand, so if it was, we could take board action, where it's automatically gonna occur, and doesn't have to be debated.
We don't have to make a big hullabaloo.
Yeah.
I think you could do it as part of your budget. I just saw another community, it was a small community, Galesville, sent me the letter they got from the PSC today that said, hey, you should think about doing the 3%.
Mhm.
And they're sending it to them now, so that I think the idea is, when you guys do your budget for your general fund and the utilities, you could theoretically have that as part of the approval of the water budget is, yes, we're gonna do the 3%.
And we just did a full rate case, we had to with the well side.
With the well, yeah.
Andrew, thoughts on the sewer? I don't really have anything else to share there.
No, that was, learned a lot. Thank you. Good information.
So we're gonna shift gears now to the tax increment districts. First off, do you guys want to talk about kids at a high level?
I want to know if there's any of them we can close.
Short answer,
Make-
no.
No, they're all new right now.
Are there any that were, are there
I wanna
any that
know
were
which
close?
ones are nicking us.
Are there any we're close on or that we can we,
The hold on to
pursue
your
them
hat,
more aggressively?
hold on to your
Get them
hat,
closed?
we're we'll probably be proposing by the end of the year to create a new one.
Probably not in the next like 5 years or so at least.
Okay.
That's what I'll say.
But most likely by the end of the year, we're proposing to create a new one.
There's a pretty good chance that might happen.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Bob had a favorable phone call with the property owner today.
Which one?
New one.
Okay, we can talk about that later.
There you go. So TID 3, this is our downtown district. This was created in 2005 as a blight elimination district. And just a few years ago, we amended it again to add new territory and projects. And I think it's paid for some improvements right down on Main and Spring Street. The expenditure period for this one ends in 2027. So that would be the last time you can initiate any new projects. But as I'll show you on the next page, when we get to the cash flow, depending on whatever kind of growth you think might occur, maybe new projects are a good idea or not, depending on where you want to go. So again, most of our cash flows, just like the water and utility ones, you read them left to right. So the way new development gets valued and you start to get revenue from it in Wisconsin, and probably most places, is any 1 year where you can do construction and you really start to create new value, that gets valued the next year. And in year 2, I guess year 3 after that, if this is year 1, that's when you start to get revenue. So there's always a lag, right? So in the current year, 2025, the value of the district was, for revenue year 2025, which was valued last year, the increment value was $169,900. So not a lot of money in TID 3, right? It hasn't really done a whole lot, but we do have some costs attributed to it for those projects. I am happy to say though, that this year construction, which we talked about just the other day, we should be getting 2.3 million in new value for it.
Building right over there.
Yep. So that will really be a sizable improvement to the TID, right? So we're going to go from, getting around $2,000 a year. So in 2027, again, construct this year, value 2026, revenue 2027, we should be getting revenue of around 34,000. So that's a big bump up.
Being that we created this when we did Main Street, around the time, 2005, around the time we did the Main Street projects.
Yeah.
What's the life of this? What is it? Is blighted to longer?
Yeah, that's right. 27 years.
That's
The other thing that you did, Ryan, if you remember, is, so TID, you guys said, TID number 2 was a huge district. That's the business park.
SMC.
You guys used 2 to share monies with this one. That's how you actually paid for Main Street.
Yeah.
The development down there has been very small. That hence the number Josh was talking about, the 169,000 in value above when we created the TID. But now it's starting to pop up with these new.
But we won't get that tax revenue because are we giving them back some of that money, the property value? How does that work into it?
We get the tax revenue, but we will give them back what they put, the money they paid us initially.
So that
For
tax,
the land value.
right,
So there's another
not the
additional
building
expense
value,
we should be tracking.
but,
Yeah. Whatever,
They're getting the dirt for free.
yeah. So I mean, when we look at that, the tax revenue, we're not actually gonna get that because we have to give that back, right? Why not?
So I'll talk to Bob and see what the details of it are. Usually,
How
when
much did you
increasing
sell the
value-
land for?
What,
That, the
Which
and
Bulls
then
building,
they
how much did we
have
sell that
I
land?
don't know. I was sold right back on the board.
That was like
we-
Once they get
160,000.
the, yeah, gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, your instincts are right, though. I think we will have to pay something out of this cash flow back to them.
Right.
But what might not, do you know if that land sale occurred this year?
No,
That was 2 years.
24.
24, okay, all right. We'll have to check on that.
So, okay.
One quick question there. TID value increment, what is increment defined?
Increment is value above what was there when you created the district. So when we created district, right? So let's go back to
Go back
this
to the
map.
map.
real quick. Yeah, go back to this map real quick. So all these parcels here, when we created the district, had some property value, some property taxes, right? So let's just say between all these ones that were listed here, the underlying value of all those properties is 500,000. Since then, whatever was built above that 500,000, when you start to do all the valuation in future years, That's what the increment is, whatever the growth was. So if it was 500,000, it was more of that because it was downtown, right? But since then, it's only grown by 169,000. That's what the increment means.
And have all of these buildings that are within this increment been reassessed? Or when we go and reassess those, does that then make the TID increment go up?
Inflation, anything that occurs from the year you create the TID captures that as increment.
So it's really gonna benefit us to get an assessment done throughout the whole village.
So it is surprising though that all those buildings, so some of them have not been there for the entire time. I think the map that you were shown, it was only,
Well, we
Yeah,
lost
but
The
some
it-
of
red
these too.
was the original.
yeah, so the red was original and you can see there's only like 9 or 10 parcels in there. It is surprising that
We
only
lost
those
the
10
General Sam's
parcels.
building.
Yep, the fire.
Also maybe that's why. So there's some value that went
And
off.
you guys own that lot.
Now we own it now.
You actually use the TID to
Totally
buy that
off
lot,
now.
and that has a zero value.
Yeah.
For now, it's
Plus-
for sale, it's gonna
plus-
go fast.
Plus what we paid for it.
Is Zeller's new office location?
Yeah,
No, we
Already
just
have it.
moved. Should have pushed for Somerset.
Yeah.
That's the only time I'm like, I guess not. Anyway,
Not really.
yeah. So we've got some new value coming in this year. As you can see though, on the right, so again, we're trying to subtract revenues from expenses to get to the balance columns on the right-hand side. In 2024, based on your current audit, the district was already in deficit by 92,000. And we're starting to pay that off now that we have more value coming in, but we still need more value to get you fully into the black on this and close it in the positive. But we do have a couple of tricks up our sleeve to recover additional revenue by the time the district closes. So since this is a blight elimination district, and it was created before 2014, you can probably extend it for another 6 years if you wanted to recover more costs rather than closing it immediately and ending in a deficit. So that's one thing. Another thing you can do, since it's a blight district, you can share funds from other successful districts in the community, which is allowed by state law since this is a blight district. So the only other district that we have that is probably going to be able to share enough revenue into it is the brand, well, I guess not brand new, TID 6, which is doing great, right? So we'll have to keep that in mind.
How did we get the blight designation? Do we have to apply for that, or do we?
That's just the plan, that's the plan that we created.
Local finding. You
We
guys
just
just have to.
declare it a blight
Yeah,
district.
we should, that's what we did back then.
Right.
It was basically a financing scheme to help with Main Street.
It paid, using TID up here to share money to this TID to pay for Main Street.
So,
She kept it off the levy.
We have to sell that lot, get something built in there, or
And that would also
reassess
help
the
there, too.
values.
Selling that lot, that money would go into this TID. So that would help as well.
Come on, Davy Brock, get her done.
There you go. So TID 5 is probably the most interesting district in terms of telling us the story today. That's the one we'll use. So we created this in 2020, it's a mixed-use district, which is not eligible for sharing funds into. State law does not allow it. So, this is,
Current state law.
state law. Maybe sometime by the time we are wrapped up here.
Let's say it was Cashman and Malt, can it donor out? Or it just can't donor it at all?
It can give out, it just can't receive.
Okay.
Into blight districts.
Yeah.
Right. So a lot of big thinking has gone into the creation of this district. It could be amazing potential. All right, so the cash flow, this is a tricky one. So we've already taken out a fair bit of debt in this district to pay for projects, pay for land acquisition, and give out some incentives, right? So only recently in this last year are we starting to see any new values. So, and that was created by Growing Wings, right, just last year. So that's how we went from 802 in 2024 to now new value in, which we'll start getting revenue for next year. Are you guys tracking with me on the cash flow that we're pointing to? Great.
Yep.
All right, so we do still have a lot of exciting things happening in this district moving forward. So looking on the expenses side, I've got two different things in debt and expenses moving forward. One is a projected state trust fund loan this is to pay for the utilities that are going under the freeway to connect to the polluted parcels and everything that's on basically the southern end, the largest future development
The
opportunity
prime
there.
area.
So there's a good chance, so for these two, there's a good chance they don't happen exactly this way. We'll probably, for that state trust fund loan, rather than doing it that way and do permanent financing straight from the get-go, we'll probably do some other kind of back-ended debt instrument later this year. So that other column there is the incentive that CapVest would need to come into the community.
It's part of the development agreement.
Right. So the tricky thing about CapVest is that as part of their development agreement, they're going to create the new value for it, but then we're giving them this incentive back for that new value. So they're basically getting all of the increment that they're creating. So we need additional growth beyond that to cover the existing
Because they're
expenses.
putting in the road and the infrastructure.
Right, it's the reimbursement for them for their own costs, right? So that's the way that was working. So we need additional development beyond that, i.e. everything south of the freeway, really to come in to pay for all the other investments that you guys have done, and which was the whole point of this district to begin with, right? Is to,
And there's the
Acquire
other
those
other
parcels.
little chunk there.
what's that?
There's a other little triangle chunk.
Those outlots.
Yeah, so the
Right,
idea with CapVest was they're gonna bring in a bunch of residential, right?
Mhm.
They're paying for all the infrastructure around it. The lots that you guys own that are around the residential now should have more values to hopefully sell and more incentive for people to build there. And because there's a collection of people.
Right, residential demand services.
So hopefully you see some commercial around that. And then, as Josh said, the real cherry on the sundae would be if you could get stuff going on the other side of the freeway. And that's been the tricky part. It's just, there isn't anything going over there. So.
And we could talk 3 hours on that one, but we won't say anything.
Right.
Yep, it could be a long conversation, which we've had with Bob and Andrew many times. So looking at the balances all the way on the right-hand side of the cash flow, you can see a lot of numbers in brackets, right? So that means we've got negatives that we need to figure out. And this is when Andrew mentioned earlier, the use of cash to supply, to be the backstop for some of these TIDs. And that's why some of those cash balances and all those various funds that you guys have at your disposal are tracking down. And then the rating agencies are noticing those because you're making investments in TID 5. This could be a big deal for the community. So there are only so many different ways to pay for that without having it go on to the tax levy. And that's where those other funds jump in. And going back to that, we should even tear off the slide because this one's really important. The one with the blue and the green columns, because these are all the bills that need to be paid, right? And then every year, it's really an exercise of like, how big is the green gonna be? How big is the blue gonna be? And that's what ends up on the worksheet, which ultimately, Andrea, and your budget is all funneling into this, right? That's what that one means. Okay. So,
In versus out.
exactly, 100%. So, right now, you've got the cumulative balance showing negatives until the final year. And basically, I got there by just doing funny math, by adding new valuation to the left-hand side under the revenue. So basically, we need about 32 million in new revenue coming in, plus some advances to get you for this to be positive by the end of the life of the district. So
Does it close?
we got some work to do, 2041.
Yes.
This one could also be probably, I don't know, who knows what law is going to be in 16 years from now when we're going to have to close this district. Maybe there's more opportunity to extend the life for a few years. Don't know.
I'm not gonna depend on.
Wisconsin ain't getting any less popular.
Hey, Josh, Andrew reminded me too, as I was going through this, you guys did get a check from CapVest to buy that land. We don't have that in here, because that check came in 25, not 24.
Oh, it did come at 25, not 24.
That's
Oh,
what
that's
Andrew
interesting.
Yeah.
Well,
So that
that's,
makes it doesn't solve all the problems,
Right.
but it makes it a little bit.
And then you so you got thrown in here like
CapVest,
another growing wings is gonna be thrown in there. They're talking about that.
Yeah,
They're just kind of figuring that they're filling in those 18
An
lots.
Arby's, a Wendy's, a McDonald's, who knows what.
Texas Roadhouse.
Culvers.
Hopefully on the Prime Rock area.
Anyone else getting hungry?
Qdoba.
Hopefully across the road we get a hotel. Once you get a hotel, then things,
Sports complex.
well, no.
Why didn't we order gluten-free pizza?
Well, we get in the garbage.
still be hungry.
All right, keep going.
Cool. So lots to do on TID 5. All right, TID 6 though. Hey, here's a great story. This is one just from a few years ago. We basically created this board capstone, and you might be saying, Josh, well, why do we have this weird looking district here?
Gerrymandered.
There it is, yes.
So we did that basically so we could create a finding to justify
Pandemic. they called it.
the mixed-use residential district that we're looking, the residential portion. So there is no such thing as a residential TID that we can create. The only TID that can be used to pay for residential is a mixed-use district. So to make a mixed-use district, at least 50% of the total has to be a combination of 2 of the 3 of residential, commercial, and industrial. So since it's dominated residential on top, we had to draw all these weird funky lines to pick up all these other parcels.
So is that why the county kind of pushed back and was like, this looks like a residential development to me?
Yep.
Exactly.
Well, Ken is a former city administrator, so he knows.
Oh, yeah, Ken knows.
He knows the strategies.
I'm a sharp guy.
He knew what was going
He
on.
is silent.
Come on, Ken, help us out here.
Yeah,
He's
He
silent,
did
but
ultimately.
shrewd and clever.
He is a very thoughtful, deliberative, soft-spoken, quiet guy. He thinks very hard before he ever opens his mouth.
So we just told him to suck it.
I think Bob, I heard that conversation. I think part
No,
Bob said that nicely, didn't he?
So that was
Bob
a really
basically
funny,
blackmailed him.
it was a really funny meeting to sit in because I think Ken was just trying to make like a broader point. But these are the kind of things where most people come, they don't have a lot of experience with TIF. You know, there's a village member, there's a public member at Tech College, and you know, they don't think about it all the time. So Ken didn't make a motion to, or I can't remember exactly. Someone brought up the motion, but then since Ken was the only person saying anything, no one else made the second to move it forward. And so we had done a lot of work on it, and I'm sitting here thinking, I think it was in that chair right over there. Is this gonna die without getting a second? But Ken didn't really want it to die. He was just like trying to make a point, but no one else was really going to be a strong proponent for it.
Yeah.
Fortunately, it went. Obviously, we're here now, so that's just a little bit of history.
Good to know.
Yeah,
it was that close.
Don't hold it.
Yeah.
Don't hold it against Kenny.
Oh, the
He's a good
Netflix
guy.
series
Oh,
for
for sure.
Somerset is gonna be amazing when it hits. It's gonna happen.
So Ken will eventually be very happy with this district because it will close early. There will probably not be a ton more costs
I'm having
associated
coffee
with this
with him in
district.
2 weeks, so
Okay.
I'll make sure I give him a good jab.
So when we build the new, also that's what you're saying, we'll have to have a new TID, if anything, if there were potentially any growth
Yeah,
to the
let's
north.
say we decided to buy some more land to the north for an example.
So we would just
From
have
a
to,
certain, that's a certain farm.
but we just have to make sure that if we did, a certain percentage of it would be residential, industrial,
It would be,
a mix.
it is potentially, hypothetically, mixed use TIF.
Got it.
We'd have to do similar creative findings to make sure we're bringing the right parcels. That could be plausibly any of those other uses. So the cash flow here, hard to believe, but this one's actually fairly conservative because it's actually looking so positive. So you can see in the revenue column where we show the potential growth, basically Capstone is proposing of building out the rest of their stuff by 2027. So that's why you can see 4.5 million now, 13.5 a new value. But I think that's even based on the very old map that we had when we created the district at a value of the home of being 450,000, which we know it's going to be more than that.
Well, there's one that's $1 million itself there that we've been mysteriously told.
Right, I might take a swing up there when the meeting's over and just check it out. 'Cause I don't think I've
If you
been up
wanna
there for like
go
6
in,
months.
when that house is done, if you wanna go, I'm redoing the concrete on it.
Oh, okay.
So it'll be $1 million too now.
No. He's cheaper than you think. They're talking about Umberto.
Oh, it's got a nice place.
His new place is gonna be.
So the most important thing here is, you know, over time, we're not really seeing the same issue with deficits that we had from the previous districts.
And this,
The
so
balance
this
here is
could
just
go,
going up,
this
up,
can
up,
good donor to the others to help float us.
100%.
Well, 3 for sure.
Yeah.
And then 4, or I'm sorry,
Depending
5.
how 5 develops.
We, and it's, remember, it's mixed use, so you can't just permanently move it over there. And cash flow wise, there's some things you can do.
So
Or
when they're,
potentially a 7th one.
Or potentially a 7th one.
so when all of the houses are complete, we can close that
Yes,
TID
let's,
early?
No, since you already have debt for it, you would need to pay off all of that before you can close it.
But we would have, but with all those houses built in there, would we have enough to pay off the debt, and close
We'd
it?
have enough to build a new town hall.
Well,
Well, that's what I'm wondering, because once you,
Why
because
would we
once,
build a town hall though?
yeah, village,
Or
yeah. Because
Well,
one, the advantage of
we're,
closing it
maybe
is,
the only way they're gonna move is if we build it for them.
Yeah, I know that. So but the advantage of closing it is then we can,
Well,
the same stuff that happened for TID two, like.
Yes,
Okay.
yep, you're thinking about it right.
correct.
Yep.
But the other thing to consider is it would be possibly the only funding source to
To
cover
the
costs
other TIDs,
Yeah.
so we might wanna keep it open in order to get that.
until
funded.
everything's,
Can
some of
self-sustain.
the other ones are paid off, and then we could close it out.
So take for,
The discussions you guys are having, this is exactly the kind of stuff you want to be thinking about with this, because this is off to a great start and can be used as a big tool to help you with stuff down the road.
so like I know for a fact, like Olson's built that new place. What is, that is the TID, part of TID two that was closed, does that just go
It's
on?
in this tip.
It's in this TID?
Yeah, matter of fact, it's hard to see, but there's a
Oh,
column
there.
there, Olson Sanitation.
Okay.
Yeah, so that should go on the tax rolls for 27,
Okay,
as it was constructed this year, or finished this year.
so let's say like something within that TID two, let's say, SMC for instance, if they were going to add on and add something that was of significant value, like build silos or something for plastic.
Anything that gets constructed in
Yeah.
this area, south of the residential area, we would capture.
Appears in the next
But
year.
SMC
Is
is
outside
in
of it
a TID that was closed, so
Yep.
that benefits the general levy.
right away?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, they're not, I don't think they're in this TID.
no.
Because we
when we
we
subtract
just did the
from
vacant
previous
parcels.
Can they go back
Oh,
into a
yeah.
TID once they were in a TID?
You could, yeah.
Okay.
You could,
So wouldn't that be something that we'd wanna, putting
Yeah, but then
SMC in and
that's-
out of a TID?
But then it comes out the general tax levy, so you're hurting yourself on that side of the
Yeah,
equation as
think
well.
about it.
Okay, alright,
Chasing your tail a little bit there.
And you can only have so much percentage of your equalized value in the TID.
got it, okay.
hence the decision that if this 7's gonna go, we probably want to get it done this year, because if TID 6 keeps growing.
Well, hypothetically, the seller said that he wants it done by the end of the year.
So TID six doing great. To Sean Ryan's point,
Okay.
you might not want to close it early,
Yeah.
just because then you can continue to share funds. If you close it early, pay off all your debt, you basically have to close it early. So you might not even want to prepay the debt that's on here, because then you can use your balances from that.
Cash on hand.
Yeah.
to move it on.
So once we've got all those other things in check, then, yeah, then it's great to restore all that to the general tax levy. But until we have the other risks taken care of,
Those
we
are
can't
the-
close out.
What we call good debt column.
Until we get those other risks taken care of.
If this were your one district that you had, you'd want to close it as quickly as you could. But we usually think, just like we've been talking about, all of these are seen as like one big piece of the puzzle. That's why we have this conversation, and that's why financial management plans are helpful, because rather than just focusing on like the bit in front of you, you guys have a lot of interconnected.
Yeah, and you want
pieces.
options, we have all kinds of options at the end of the day.
So that's the last content slide that I have. So I don't know if you guys have anything else you want to
No,
discuss.
so we had a good discussion.
And we are at our time limit, so.
I do have a quick question.
Go ahead.
You're not
allowed. You guys could go if you want.
We started late.
You had the magic wand,
That's my fault.
you were the Supreme Emperor of Somerset. What is the number 1 and 2 thing that you recommend we do, each of you individually,
But other than pizza.
other than
Okay.
pizza?
Gluten-free.
You missed that.
Okay.
Caleb wants everybody to have pizza.
But gluten-free.
Every Friday,
So the
free pizza.
the things that I see right now is, that I want us to be cognizant of managing is, we have a couple of TIDs, big TIDs, and maybe even another one. Not creating a situation where you're competing against yourself. You know what I'm saying? Because you guys got all this development going on, and if you got land available in a TID up here and land available in a TID down here, then you could be arguing against yourself, competing with yourself. So trying to make sure we avoid that. And I think the other one is controlling and getting a handle on the list of facility and other expenditures that we're gonna be doing in the next couple of years, so we get a good plan on how that's gonna happen. But those would be the two that come to mind for me.
which ultimately you're saying is create a new financial management.
Well, I think that's definitely a strategy to try to control all this and be looking at it all together at the
Plus,
same
it's
time.
part of that number two is also have to get a new assessment done.
I think we,
Even though the
Chief,
one,
we got you guys a proposal I think before.
I'm certain.
It would be this, I think it would be the same, but
I know.
yeah. No, for the FMP, I believe.
I'm looking at old postings on the,
I can go back and look, I might be misremembering, but I thought we had talked about it about a year ago.
Yeah, we talked about it, I remember.
Yeah.
But I don't always work on this, so
Right.
I would know.
And the last thing, kind of a half one, is we really do have to have a good plan on this TID 5, because as you saw those numbers, it can get pretty negative pretty fast, and we gotta find a way to make sure we manage that.
Yeah.
we gotta figure out some leverage.
That to me is my biggest one that I think of. Like the sewer is in the important but not urgent category, I would basically call that.
Yeah, we're gonna-
You're able to pay your bills, but you can do that, and you can also have control over that, right? It's some of the external things, like getting growth into 5 and getting a developer to build all that out is a harder thing to do. I mean, you guys could increase the sewer rates at your next meeting if you wanted to.
It's tough to get individuals to move who don't
Yep.
wanna move.
Right.
Aren't motivated by money or things of that nature.
And even on the TID 5 piece, if you want to, go back to that, I mean, we are showing deficits there because you have geo debt. But this is where every year you have to think like, how much are we willing to let the levy go up so that we don't get a bigger and bigger and bigger hole that needs to be solved later? The whole point of having it too is to keep it off the levy, but it is part of our responsibility. So there's only so many ways that you can solve for those deficits. So I don't know if it's, some years maybe it's like allow your levy to go up an extra 30,000, pull 30,000 in cash, or figure out something else.
I think hopefully in a couple of years, we're sitting here going, oh, TID 5 is blowing up and we're happy, because I know that's the only question I get, and everyone asks me, what's going on in that, right off the freeway, what's going on in that big dirt pile there, what are you doing
Oh,
there?
yeah, I have lots of Facebook arguments about that.
That's all I hear, all the time.
We get a lot of calls, how can I rent one of your apartments?
Mhm.
Like,
Already?
People are excited about, oh, yeah.
That's a good-
There's a housing crisis.
Oh yeah,
They're
that
excited about
housing
it,
stuff
but
definitely showed
it's
that.
like, get it built.
Yeah, one step at a time.
Yeah.
Do they have a completion date right now, or is it still,
They pulled permits.
they did?
so-
Are they shooting for end of the year, aren't they?
Yeah, they got permits to start.
Seen a lot of cement trucks over there. In the creek going down.
The massive
I know why they-
expansion and infrastructure put in.
That was at
Where they started.
Fall Creek.
Oh,
Yeah, we gotta put it in at
Even
the,
like-
Thank you for
slabs.
pronouncing.
we gotta do it at the front end.
Oh, my
Just-
goodness.
Oh, there, those outlots,
Correct.
we're making money on those.
Oh, yeah.
Or Sal said he wants one.
We're gonna cha-ching on those lots.
Well, that's what we said. We told him we already gave out all the benefit. There's none for you. None for you.
Well, then, I don't think we're gonna have to discount it, it'll be market rate, people are gonna want.
A lot of people
How many
drive by
cars a
there.
day are we getting on 64?
Oh God, I don't even know. Bob's got the
18,000
number.
or
I
something?
mean,
And on Fridays when people are going out heading out to head to their campground, and on Sundays when they're heading
Yeah.
back, yeah. Oh, it's nuts driving up 63. It's crazy on Fridays.
Sure.
Starts at 1. It doesn't end until 6 o'clock.
So was it the July board meeting?
Where you,
I live in St. Paul.
Sorry.
So,
Guy.
talk about
What
tax
part?
increases. Back roads.
Yes, you've got one interesting mayor, you've got one interesting mayor over
you gonna
there.
vote for Marvin
oh,
again?
yeah.
I don't know.
And each
Uh,
box was this
Who's gonna run against him?
No,
Like, overstaffing, I guess. I don't know. I think he's doing a bad job. I don't think. Compared to what, I guess. I really think that the third term is just, in general, just too much.
Oh.
I grew up outside of Detroit, so I've seen this whole